Hi guys, my name's Jordan Williams and I'm in your LAI 414 class. I'm a junior here at UB. I'm studying physics and my goal is to be a physics teacher one day. I found this week's material very moving and really relatable, which was nice because I get to talk to you guys about it, and hopefully you guys do too, and we can have a nice discussion about it in the comments below. So the first thing that we had to watch was the TED Talk by Shane. I don't want to say his last name because I think I'll really mess it up. But it was called To This Day for the Bullied and the Beautiful. And the first thing he talks about is how we all have this common fear of figuring out who we are before others tell us who we are and make us think we are something that we're not. And I think that this is something I went through in middle school, maybe early high school, but I think nowadays kids go through it much earlier. They're forced to grow up and figure out who they are way sooner than maybe they're even ready to. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't remember a lot about what I was thinking in elementary school. I think I was just a kid and I was happy on a bike or, playing outside. And it wasn't until middle school that I started having issues like Shane talked about with bullying or people calling you names or treating you like you are something that you're not. And so I found this TED Talk so moving, and it was actually pretty emotional to watch. I'm sure all of you feel similar, how he went about his poem and how he read that. It was just his tone of voice was just really powerful. When I was in middle school, I I hung out with a group of girls that I grew up with in elementary school all the way through. And they started getting into things that, my parents didn't want me to be, and I didn't want to be either, but they were a little ahead of our age, like a lot of kids are nowadays. And so they were taking, they were hanging out with boys or they were doing things that most parents wouldn't want their sixth graders doing. So I was not allowed to hang out with them anymore. And I still tried to be friends with them in school, but there was a lot of times where I'd have to be like, oh, I can't hang out. My mom would always say, blame it on me. So I'd be like, okay, well, my mom said I can't hang out today. So quickly they distanced themselves from me. I went to the lunchroom and my spot at the table wasn't there, so I was forced to sit somewhere with people I didn't know. And our middle school, this was like already a difficult time because from fifth grade to middle school, there were more schools. So you were in a middle school with kids you didn't know. So you were forced to sit with people you didn't know. And as a kid, that's scary. Now at college, you go and sit in a cafeteria and it's not a big deal. But at then, it felt kind of like the end of the world when a group of your friends kind of drop you. And I remember being so upset, thinking, what did I do? What's wrong with me? They used to call me annoying. And I used to still now I am so paranoid about if I'm being annoying or if I'm talking too much. And like, that's because as a little girl, I was told that by these girls who said, you're annoying, we don't like hanging out with you. But I have so many people now that like hanging out with me, I think. And I overcame that. And I think that's what Shane's message is that we have to overcome what people are trying to say that we are and know that we are who we know we are. And people can say we're one thing, but we have to choose to not believe them and to say that they're wrong. And I think that's what I was fortunate enough to have parents that talked to me and made me know that I am who I am and I should be happy with who I am. And I'm grateful for that. And I think that that's something that, I'm not sure I would be where I am right now if it weren't for having parents that talked to me and made me know that, this is a temporary feeling. And that's something I think that as teachers, they need to help kids. And I say this, I don't have a plan on how to stop it, but my biggest thing is I think kids have to know that, and we have to help them know how much bigger the world is, how much more there is to life. So I think that's what Shane was trying to say. And it's just rising above what people think we are. And so I wanted to talk to you guys about something. I am a substitute teacher. When I go home, I substitute at my high school. And as a college student, I haven't really had any exposure to classrooms. I've just observed. I've never been thrown in as the teacher. So this is a great learning experience for me. So over winter break, I was a substitute for a third grade class. And every time I go in there, there's usually, instructions from the teacher saying, this is what we're going to do today. But this was a little different because there was a specific note that said, keep so and so away from so and so. And I'm like, okay. So I figured out which girls she was talking about because that was the first thing. But as you can imagine, there's 20 other kids who are challenging in their own ways. So it was difficult for me. I tried my best to like keep them apart, notice if something was off. But at the end of the day, the two girls were together and I was distracted by the boys throwing a ball or something. I was just distracted and I looked over and I clearly saw that they were, having an issue. So I went over there and it was very obvious to me who was bullying and who was being bullied. But I'm not there every day to know the situation and to know I'm not going to call a student out for doing something. So I just asked them what was wrong. I tried to get them to talk. I had them apologize. And then I had the girl who I noticed was clearly upset and clearly the one being bullied step out in the hallway. And I went out there and I talked to her a little bit and I asked her if she was all right. And I said, how often does this happen? And she told me it's an everyday thing. So then I said, do your parents know? Does your teacher know? And she said, yes, I told my parents, and my parents talked to my teacher. And I told her, you did everything right. The first thing to making this better is to ask for help. And I wanted her to know that it's okay that she asked for help and that's what she should do. And so then I talked to her. I wanted to tell her and try to help her know that this is temporary and it's hard and it's sad and it's the worst thing in the moment, and especially in a third grader. Like, I didn't know that this was, I know now that it's happening, but to see such a little person be so upset is so hard because they just should be, you think kids are just so happy-go-lucky, and it's just not how the world is now. So I told her, I was bullied by a lot of girls growing up, and despite that happening, I met some of the most amazing girls and some of my best friends that I still am in contact with at college. And, if I hadn't have had that happen, I might not have met those people. And I told her, I was like, I'm now happy with myself. I have so many nice friends. I'm a teacher. And I think seeing her look up at me and know that, okay, she was bullied too. And she went through something that hurt her feelings and made her sad, and she's all right, and she looks happy. I think it made her happy, and I was grateful that we had that moment. And I then continued to say, like, what do you like to do? What are your favorite things? I found out she's a third grader that's amazing at horseback riding, and I wanted her to know that she is unique, and no one can make her feel like she's anything but what she wants to be. And so then she seemed better and she went back in the room and I left the teacher a note, told her I talked to the girl. And this was hard for me because I'm only there for a day. I can't change anything and this was a new experience for me. So if anyone who is a teacher or anyone who's had a similar experience wants to tell me what I could have done better or what I shouldn't have done, I would love to hear that because I went home that day to my parents and I explained and I'm like, I don't know if I handled it correctly or what I should have said or what I should have done differently. I hope that I handled it okay. So I'd love to hear your guys' feedback on that. The last thing that I'll talk about in Shane's TED Talk is the one part where he talked about the little girl that had a birthmark on her face and she was made fun of for it. He said now she has 2 daughters whose beauty definitions begins with the word mom. Like, that was just so sweet, and I loved that. And I just was curious if you guys, what you thought that woman might write to herself as a little girl being picked on. Knowing now that she has 2 kids and she's happy with herself and with her life, what she might tell her younger self. And I also encourage you guys to do this for yourself. If you had a hard time, whether it was recently or when you were little, just any time that you are where you are now as a student, going to school to become a teacher, you're all successful in your own ways. How you would write to your younger self to say it's going to be okay. I look where I am now, look where you're going to be. I read on Psych Central how important and how influential journaling can be. And I thought that this was really interesting because this whole class is about writing and how it helps academically and helps students learn better. But also, writing can give health benefits. And I wanted to talk about it because I think that journaling has helped me. My roommates and I began this thing called a grateful journal, and we try to do it every day. I'm not the best at it, but you try to write 3 things at the end of the day that you're grateful for, whether it's I got pizza for dinner or, the smallest of things, just something to show you that if you were stressed or you had a bad day, there's at least three things you can come up with that weren't so bad and made the day better. And so I was wondering if you guys, if you'd want, you could just write a letter to yourself as a journaling activity. You don't have to submit it or anything. I just think that after reading the Psych Central article, I read that journaling clarifies your thoughts and your feelings. You get to know yourself way better than you did before. It reduces stress. It helps you solve problems more effectively, as well as disagreements you might have in your own head or with someone else. And I just encourage you that, we're all in college, we're all taking classes, or we're teachers, and we all have different stresses. Just try it, get a journal, put a pen to paper, and write your thoughts down. And I find it really helpful, and I think that you guys could too. So let me know if you have any thoughts on that. The other video we watched was Taylor Molly's video, and it was very obvious how frustrated and angry he was. And I don't know about you guys, but I have had similar feelings. So this video was pretty entertaining and pretty moving for me. I can't tell you how many times people ask me, whether it's at home or whether it's here, what are you studying in college? And I say physics. And then they say, oh, what are you going to do with that? And, enter their imagination. Med school, PhD, college professor, researcher, and then I answer, I want to be a high school physics teacher. And it's so obvious, their face changes, and it's almost as if it's like, oh, okay, a teacher. And that's so upsetting, and I've told my parents, and it makes my parents so sad that people react this way. It's like they're impressed for a second, and then you say you're going to be a teacher, and it's like, oh. And I don't let this get to me, I kind of just smile and say, yeah, it's always been my dream, because it has. And whether people think that it's impressive or not, it really doesn't matter to me, because I am proud of my choice to go to school and be a teacher. I'm proud of myself for doing it, and I think I'll continue to be proud of myself, because like Molly said, teachers are doing so much more than, what people say, they don't get paid, it's a poor job, they don't work that hard, all these horrible things. When teachers are, they're making a huge difference for your kids' lives. I've just never understood how people can be so judgmental towards teachers when where would we be without them? Where would, a doctor has to become a doctor because they're being taught by someone. There's all these things that teachers need to be rewarded for. And I think that his anger in the video depicts my anger too, because, and I'm sure most of you have had moments like this. And I'd love if in the comments you explained a situation, if you want, where you felt someone was judging you for being a teacher, or thinking it's not that impressive, because I've had this a few times, and it's sad how many times it's happened, because if my parents are proud of me and I'm proud of me, and, that's all I need. I don't need justification for other people. I don't need to make other people think I'm impressive, because at the end of the day, I'm going to be happy with what I'm doing, teaching these kids. And I hope that all of you don't let people's opinions get to you either, because it's only out of, not understanding what teachers do, and not understanding maybe your purpose for going into teaching, because they never ask me that. They never say well, what motivated you to be a teacher? Because if they ask me that, I could tell them so many things that would make them realize that she's the right girl for the job, So that video I thought was really, really relatable, and I think it was a entertaining, funny way to just kind of show how teachers might feel, and I think that a lot of current teachers could probably really relate to this video. So the second half of our week's assignment were readings, and the first one was about teachers making a difference. It was by Amy Pollack, Kristen Cullen, and William Buskett, and it was about teaching for an impact rather than just teaching for the content of the text in the textbooks. And what I liked about this article was it went into college students and college professors, and I found that really relatable because, I'm in college, as most of you are, and I found it interesting. I thought it said 79% of college students said they've had at least one professor that's made an impact on their life beyond, the academics. And I actually thought this number was pretty high. Maybe it's because I go to UB, which is a huge school, like 30,000 undergraduates. I had many lectures where it's not below 300 kids. So to me, it seems like it'd be challenging for you to get to know your professor and have them have this personal impact on you. Whereas in high school, at least my high school was really small, 20 kids, less than that per class. So it was much easier to get to know your teacher. So I thought the 79% was a pretty good number. But 21% never having a teacher that made an impact on them, that's high. To never have anybody, even a TA, maybe not even a professor, just anybody in college that maybe impacted you. I think that this article, as much as I agree that, there needs to be teachers for impact, obviously, I think that professors, it would be hard, especially at UB, you have a class full of 300, 400 kids. Half of them maybe are just taking the class because they need it for a credit. They don't care that much. It's hard. I'm sure it's so hard to get to know your students, and I think that we put a lot of pressure on them. But I think, on the other hand, there's also ways for the professor to be much more approachable than they maybe are. This article talks about smiling and being approachable, saying words like us, we, to show unity of a class, be more excited, more hand motions, just use humor, just to be like a person instead of a robotic, professor that's not approachable, because kids, I at least have been scared of my professor numerous times because you don't want to mess up, because then you think that, oh, they're going to grade me poorly or they're going to remember me as the kid that said this. High school, I mean, at least my situation, I had 2 older sisters. My high school teachers knew my sisters. I wasn't as nervous to talk to them because they knew me as a person, they knew my parents, they knew my story, basically. College, they don't know your parents. They don't know where you came from. It's much more intimidating. But I think that students and teachers in college have to meet each other halfway when it comes to developing a strong relationship. And I believe this because that's what happened to me. I would say I've been here for 3 years, and I'd say I've had 2 professors that have genuinely helped me and impacted my life in a positive way. And I think that I got that opportunity because I went to their office hours or I would talk to them after class. And this was a really scary thing for me to have to do. I put myself out there, but I met them halfway, and it showed them that I cared and that I was willing to commit to doing well. And that made them a different person. Like, they would be one person in front of a whole lecture, and then I would meet them in office hours, and they became this genuine person who cared about me. And so just to touch base on that, I started physics here at UB, and I was very intimidated by it. I didn't think I was smart enough, and I was very insecure. And I met these 2 professors who were both physics professors who are incredibly smart, and it's very intimidating. And they challenged me, and they saw how insecure I was, and they almost took it and made me realize they knew that in order for me to learn the material productively and well, I needed to believe in myself first. And that's what I admire so much about them is they gave me new problem-solving tactics. They gave me new, to avoid test stress. They used to tell me, look at the problem for 5 minutes and then break it down. Don't overwhelm yourself. They knew I'd get overwhelmed on tests. They got to know me as a student rather than just a test score. And that's huge. And they made me believe in myself So then I was able to take that into the next physics course. And short term, it made me a better student, it made me get a better grade, I did well, but also long term, I'm going to be a more confident physics teacher. So, after talking about teachers having an impact in the article that we just talked about, I wanted to play a clip from the movie The Freedom Writers. It's a very famous movie that shows a teacher making a huge impact on a group of students' lives. If you haven't seen it and you want to be a teacher, I highly recommend watching it. I think this scene does a good job at showing an effective teacher who really cares, and the teacher in this movie really influenced me as a young girl, young student, to want to become a teacher. So I hope you enjoy the clip.
Andre, wait a minute before you go in. I heard about your brother's conviction. I'm sorry. About why you've missed class so much?
I had things to do.
About this. The evaluation assignment was to grade yourself on the work you're doing. You gave yourself an F. What's that about?
It's what I feel I deserve, it's all.
Oh, really? You know what this is? This is a fuck you to me and everyone in this class. I don't want excuses. I know what you're up against. We're all of us up against something. So you better make up your mind. Because until you have the balls to look me straight in the eye and tell me this is all you deserve, I am not letting you fail. Even if that means coming to your house every night until you finish the work. I see who you are. Do you understand me? I can see you. And you are not failing. So, take a minute, pull yourself together, and come inside. I want a new evaluation. An F. What are you, tripping?
I would love to hear if you guys have had situations like this, if you've had a professor or, a role model of some sort in college that has helped you get to where you are. I'd love to hear about it in the comment section below. So the last part of this week's assignments was an article by CNN about how test scores should define teachers. And this is a very controversial topic that I've had to talk a lot about in my education classes, and I've written research papers on it. And I think that from doing all of that and from hearing so many other people's opinions, I've kind of come up with my own opinion on it. And I think that testing is something that we have to have, and it's probably the one way. I mean, there's projects and there are creative ways, but for a lot of subjects, we need tests to see how students are doing. And I know for my subject, when I teach physics, there could be projects, but it's going to be tests and homework that allows me as the teacher to see how my students are doing. So I don't think that teachers should be faulted if, one one school year they have test scores that are really low. I think that what they should be monitored is, let's say one year they have really bad test scores, but then the next year they're a little bit higher, and then the next year a little bit higher. I think that progress should be monitored rather than just a single score after a year. I think that seeing progress in a teacher shows that teacher notices something's wrong and is working to change it. And so I think that that's maybe how it should be seen. And so basically this article just talked about value-added teachers and how test scores should be used to determine what makes a good teacher, what makes a bad teacher. And I would really like to hear your guys' opinion on this because I'm always open to hear other people's ideas on it. So thank you guys for bearing with me and listening to me talk for 20 minutes. I really look forward to hearing your comments below, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Good luck on your finals and have a happy summer. Bye.